Like many of you, I was just sitting on my couch watching football and soaking in the last week into the regular season. Then I saw the news pop up on the screen that Jonathan Smith accepted the Michigan State job. I immediately had to leave my couch, go upstairs, and get recording, because I'm pretty annoyed right now. I am not a Michigan State or Oregon State fan, but what Jonathan Smith just did is horrible. In case some of you don't know, Jonathan Smith was a star quarterback for the Beavers in the 90s and eventually flew up the coaching ladder and has turned the Oregon State football program around. They went from being a bottom 3 Power 5 program to now one of the top programs in the Pac-12 and a program that had so much promise in the future. It was safe to say that Beavers fans were ready to build a statue of Jonathan Smith, and then in the middle of the night, he is now leaving for Michigan State. Unfortunately, there's really only one reason for this, and we'll discuss that later on in the video. First though, I want to talk about this hire, talk about what this means for Michigan State, what this means for Oregon State, and why this absolutely sucks. But before we get started, if you're a big college football fan, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I could cover next. Now let's get started and talk about Jonathan Smith. Before we get going with the video, I want to interact with more of you guys, so if you're an Oregon State or a Michigan State fan, be sure to shoot me a message on Instagram, as I want to know your thoughts on the hire and what you think is going to happen to your program moving forward. Be sure to do that real quick, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. Honestly, this move absolutely sucks, and while Jonathan Smith is right now the biggest enemy in Corvallis, he really didn't have much of a choice. While the Beavers have been trying to improve their stadium and invest more money into their facilities, the stupid leadership and media of college football is the reason why this is happening. Oregon State got left out of conference realignment, and in general, it's just so unbelievably stupid, and that is why Jonathan Smith left. Oregon State was not to be picked up by a Power 5 conference, and they've been left in limbo for the last few months. He saw the writing on the wall and had to make probably the toughest decision of his entire life and leave his favorite place in the world to go to Michigan State. While to many it'll feel like a low blow, in terms of his actual career, it probably was the best move for him. Again, it's not Oregon State's fault, but the idiotic conference realignment behavior is the reason for this. There's no reason why Oregon State should not be a Power 5 team, and there's no reason why Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA should be in the Big Ten. All of this stuff is absolutely stupid, and I haven't really given my opinion on it all, but there was no reason for all this change, and now an entire program and fan base is ruined. Why couldn't we just stay with what we had and figure out a way to make things work? This stuff is going to get so ridiculous, and while it helps line the pockets of a couple of big-time programs, it's going to hurt a lot of other sports, ruin rivalries, and now, as I've said, it's ruining a fan base. As I've said behind closed doors many times, college football has been the worst-run sport with the most potential. They've had by far the worst postseason. This conference realignment stuff is absolutely terrible, officiating has been awful, and media rights stuff has been crazy. I'm not trying to fully defend Jonathan Smith here and say that I agree with what he did, but I can understand from a financial, career, and future point of view why he would leave. I have no doubt in my mind that he absolutely loves Oregon State and cherished his time there and wished he could stay. But unfortunately, from a business perspective, it didn't make sense to stay at Oregon State. And in my opinion, this upcoming coaching search is going to be very interesting for them. Jonathan Smith was truly building something special at Oregon State, and there are going to be many around college football who are really going to struggle to root for him while he's on the sidelines for the Spartans. First though, I want to talk about his impact he made on Oregon State and why he's such a big time coaching target. The Beavers were a program that were built by Mike Riley, and Jonathan Smith was actually a walk-on quarterback there. He saw a ton of success, and everyone knew he was going to be a great coach. He didn't even consider the NFL, and eventually he flew up the coaching ladder, and was most notably under Chris Peterson at Washington. He did a great job as the quarterbacks coach there before he eventually went back to his alma mater, Oregon State. They were coming off the Gary Anderson era, which was marred with scandal, disappointment, and lots of losses. It was a really tough time to be a Beavers fan, and Smith would have to build everything from the ground up. He took a hard-nosed approach to recruiting, lured a lot of good players out of the transfer portal, elevated his roster, and kept the same staff. Things were going really well for him, and eventually Oregon State broke out. They almost made a bowl game in 2019, but were just a couple points away after losing to Washington State. 2020, they'd start to have a breakthrough with a big win over Oregon, but they did only have 2 wins. It also was a shortened Pac-12 season. 2021 would be when Oregon State truly broke out, as they ended up making a bowl game, and were also just super competitive. Last year, they had an incredible season in which they went 10-3, beat Oregon, and won a bowl game against Florida. That's why Oregon State was preseason ranked this year, and they ended up living up to the hype. They were ranked in the top 15 for seemingly most of the year, and while they have fallen off in these last 2 games, Oregon State was one of the better schools in the Pac-12, and they looked like they were going to be a program near the top for years to come. Except, that's when the rumors started. I guess this week it was reported that Jonathan Smith was a big name in the Michigan State coaching search, and I guess I didn't see that, but Oregon last night trolled Oregon State fans by playing part of the Michigan State game before the game. While it is a big-time rivalry, I do honestly feel that was probably a little bit unnecessary, but who am I to judge? I guess today they decided to make it final, and Michigan State would roll with Jonathan Smith after also considering Mike Elko from Duke, but apparently he dropped out before Thanksgiving. Keeping Jonathan Smith has been a major priority for the Oregon State administration, and Scott Barnes was trying to do everything he could to keep Smith there. They had both long-term and short-term solutions, but at the end of the day, there was so much going on at Oregon State, and they were in limbo. No one really knows what's going to happen with them in Wazoo, and because of that, I'm sure they just could not come up with a deal. It absolutely sucks because I wanted to see Jonathan Smith stay there, but as I've said multiple times in the video, from a business perspective, it makes sense. I think tomfoolery in college football is a lot more to blame than Jonathan Smith not having enough love for his alma mater, but it still doesn't lessen the blow. Moving forward, Oregon State's in a really difficult spot. Most of the time when a coach comes in, they kind of want to know what's going to happen in the future. They want to know how much time they're going to get, what they're going to be up against, and how they're going to have to recruit and game plan. With Oregon State being in Power 5 limbo, what coach would want to take that job? It's already going to be hard enough to win there to begin with, and now you face that. I don't really know which coach is really going to want to go there. Maybe you poach a coach from the Group of 5 level, maybe you poach a coordinator from another successful school, or maybe you hire a guy who truly wants to be at Oregon State, like an alum. Luckily, they actually have a current guy on the staff who could fill into that role. His name is Trent Bray. He's the current defensive coordinator for the Beavers, and while he has never been a head coach, he was a former Oregon State player and truly understands what Smith was building and what it takes to win at Oregon State. The Beaver defense has been one of the best in the country, as they are number 1 in the Pac-12 in fewest points allowed, and that has been the bread and butter of what's made them so successful. Bray already has the connections, the support from the administration, and a love for the Beavers in general. But my big question is, will Jonathan Smith try to bring him with him to Michigan State? That's a question I can't really answer, but for now, I'd say that Bray is probably the leading candidate for that job. Turning over to the Michigan State point of view, this is a really good hire. As much as it sucks to see this happen, it is a really good day for Michigan State football in my opinion. Smith is one of the best pure coaches in college football, and will help bring an identity to Michigan State that they have been lacking. While Mel Tucker found a couple of diamonds in the rough, overall his player development was lacking and his defense wasn't great either. Michigan State's never been known as a recruiting powerhouse, and I don't think Smith will be asked to do that. He'll be asked to develop players, get transfers, and bring stability to a program that desperately needs some good coaching and some good off-the-field leadership. Michigan State as a whole has been rocked by a couple of scandals over the last few years, and they really need someone with a clean record who's going to turn things around. I do think it's going to be an uphill battle for Smith, though. With all the new Big Ten realignment stuff, I'm not sure who Michigan State will be playing every year, but you have to assume they're probably going to play Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan a lot, and you'll get your fair share of Oregon, Wisconsin, Washington, and USC. Playing in the Big Ten is not easy, and despite how good the Pac-12 has been this year, the Big Ten is still a much better conference. It's also going to be hard being the little brother of Michigan in the state, and some will also claim that Oregon State really wasn't all that good. I tend to disagree with them, as I think it's really hard to win Oregon State, but being able to replicate that kind of success at another school with more tradition is not going to be an easy task for them. Michigan State's administration said this, quote, Jonathan has a proven track record of success building the Oregon State program from the ground up by implementing a plan resulting in sustained historic success for the Beavers. He's been part of championship staffs, has coached in the college football playoff, and understands what's required to be successful at the highest level, learning from some of the game's most successful coaches. On the field, his teams are tough, physical, and yet innovative. This year, Oregon State controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and they ranked among the nation's leaders in both rushing offense and rushing defense. He has the ability to recruit talented student athletes who fit his system, and to also develop and maximize players once they're there. In my opinion, that's a really good summary of what Smith did at Oregon State. Will it translate to Michigan State? I don't really know. For now, though, there's going to be a lot of sour grapes at Corvallis and a lot of celebration in East Lansing. I think Oregon State right now is the most screwed program in all of college football, and Michigan State just pulled a fast one and got a really good coach. I'm not anti-Spartan or anti-Michigan State by any means, but this one does kind of suck, and at the end of the day, it's just what modern college football has become. But what do you guys think? If you're an Oregon State or Michigan State fan, be sure to let me know your thoughts down below, and shoot me a message on Instagram. Let me know what you guys think of this hire, the state of college football, and what player, topic, or situation I could cover next. Before you go, also don't forget to subscribe and check out all my other videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.